Hum, hum, hum. Bum, bum, bum. That's when The Price is Right. Bum, 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 bum. Hello everyone, welcome back to Foster the Meeple, a channel all about board games and board gamey things. I am back again today with another pumped up Gamefound, which is a preview video. Now today's preview video is going to be on Cyberpunk 2077, the board game, and this is from Go On Board, who very kindly sponsored this preview video. Now, as per usual with our preview videos, I'm going to do a little overview, help you figure out whether or not this is the right game for you. But before we get into that, I just have a couple of things that we should note. Number one, the copy of the game that we have received is a demo copy, so we do not have like the full version of the game essentially. Basically what the demo copy has done, it has provided us with 3 prologue missions, and so we don't have the full game, we just have a little bit of a taste of what's inside. And so with that, I'm going to be able to tell you a little bit more about what you can expect from Cyberpunk 2077. And we're back! So let's talk about Cyberpunk 2077, the board game, shall we? Let's do it. Cyberpunk 2077, the board game, is a fast-paced cooperative tactical card game where each player controls a character known as an edge runner. With the guidance of the app and the location map, players are going to decide which mission they would like to take on. And this is done through a series of real-time fights and cooldowns, and players are attempting to complete main objectives provided by that mission's card description, basically. So you are going to be playing through a bunch of different missions. Now, what I've already said is that the game comes with an app, and it does come with an app, but just so you know, if you are app adverse, if you don't enjoy using technology in your board games, you can play the game without the app, but it is highly recommended that you do use it because it definitely will help guide you through your missions. It counts down time, and it will provide some useful information in the campaign. That being said, only one player actually needs the app, so not everybody around the table needs it, just one player will need to manage it essentially. But like I said, you don't need to use it, but it is recommended. Okay, so you have your choices, and we all love choices. So let me tell you a little bit more about how the game is played. Now, like I said before, we only received the 3 prologue missions, and essentially for the prologue missions, they act as a tutorial, getting progressively more difficult as they go, and they're teaching you the mechanics of the game, which is something that is really great because you can kind of progressively learn the game as you go instead of having to do a full-on rules dump up front. So basically you'll do a prologue mission, it'll introduce you to the world, and the next one will introduce you to a couple more mechanics, and the next one's going to throw some more things in, and then at that time you know all of the basic things that you really need to know in order to play through the game. So in Cyberpunk 2077, you're going to be completing missions, and then in between main missions, you'll be able to explore Night City. This is the map book, so this is something that you're going to be able to explore throughout the game. When you do this, you can visit a Ripper Dock or a gun shop to buy new equipment. Or, if you prefer, you can head off to some dark alleys and experience some street stories. Which, in a game, totally fine. In real life, I do not recommend walking down the dark alleys to learn street stories. Just, you don't need to be doing that. But in the game, super fun. So there's also going to be an afterlife mode, which is independent from the story campaign, and this can actually be explored whenever you want. So it can happen before a main mission, during a main mission, after finishing the main storyline, whatever you like to do. It's actually a really great way to introduce new players to the game mechanics or to train before you dive into certain missions. So just know that that's also something that's going to be included. Now, when you start the game, you are going to get to choose between 4 main characters. So for anybody that is a fan of the video game, so for anybody that doesn't know, Cyberpunk 2077 is a video game. I myself have not played it, however, Jeff has. So for those of you that are familiar with the video game IP, you will recognize the characters that I'm about to show you, but you get to choose between 4 characters. So you can play as Jackie Wells, Judy Alvarez, Pannum Palmer, and V. And V comes with a female version and a male version, and you get to choose which one you would like to be. So you're going to be choosing from those 4 characters. Now, when you start a mission, the first thing that you are going to do is you're going to look at that mission card. So this is the mission card for Prologue 1. It is going to give you some setup rules. It's going to give you your objectives, everything that you basically need to know to kind of launch yourself into that mission. Each mission is going to be divided into action phases, which are your fights, and that's where all the action happens. It's where all the spice happens. This is the meat and potatoes of the game, as I like to say. So you've got your action phase, and then you have your cooldowns, and this is when players prepare for the next fight. So there's a lot of fighting, okay? This is not like a chill, let's just like hold hands in kumbaya. This is a fighting kind of game. So in the cooldown, that's when you're actually going to be preparing yourself for your next fight, your next action phase. The main part of the game is actually going to happen in what they call a sequential timed action phase, or STAP for short, or as I like to say, STAP. STAP. So to start, players are going to be drawing 4 cards into their hands without looking at them. Then after the signal, which in the app is going to be kind of a countdown like 3, 2, 1, everybody is going to look at their hands. And then you're going to choose an active player, and the active player will then play their turn, and then everyone else will be playing out their turns kind of one after another until the time runs out, essentially. During STAP, during that phase, players cannot undo their moves. So once you do something, it's done. You can't take it back and start changing things. You can't change the state of the main board between your turns just because you forgot to do something, okay? So I know many of us have the tendency to say, oop, I didn't mean to do that. Well, it's tough because this is part of the real-time aspect of the game, is that you're trying to be quick because you're on a time limit, so you are kind of doing your actions and playing things out, and you can't go back. So on their turn, the active player is going to essentially engage in combat. They're going to play an action card from their hand and resolve its effects. So a big part of the combat in this game is going to be rolling dice as well, of course, and doing damage to your enemies. You are also going to be exploring for things like loot token, and all of the things you need to keep in mind are things like range, where your enemies are, is there a locked door, do you need to open it, and then checking all of the icons on the card that you are playing to ensure that you're kind of like doing as much as you can on your turn. So basically, in the game, you are going to have your own little player board, and that is where are people? Here you are. And that is where you are going to put your ID card. It's also where you're going to be tracking things like your health as well as your skills. So you are going to have different skills in different areas, which are going to essentially correspond to the types of cards that you have in your deck. Another thing that you're going to need to manage is wounds. So there are wound cards, and you can basically, when you get down to the bottom of your health, you're going to have to add wound cards into your deck, which are then going to clog up your hand when you draw cards. So you're going to be having the cards like this. Hard to see, but you will have the cubes in here that are corresponding to your 4 different skills. Wherever your cubes are that line up with those cards, that's essentially what row you are going to be able to resolve. So you're going to be kind of gaining skills as the game goes on, which is going to strengthen the actions on the action cards that you will be taking. You're going to be able to upgrade those skills in a bunch of different ways, like either by completing objectives, or there's also items that you can craft that will increase those skill levels for you. So it's another big part of the game, is obviously you want to help out your team as much as you can, so you got to up those skills. There are matching, obviously, the skills, the 4 different skills. There are the 4 types of cards, action cards that you can have with those that will be triggering those different skills essentially. So if you see a foot, that's obviously movement. The orange hand is going to be something that allows you to kind of open and unlock doors. The green is going to increase your ROM, which is down here at the bottom. Red is going to allow you to deal damage. So red is the big damage one, and then blue is kind of like your health, your healing ability, so it'll allow you to heal. I also kind of briefly mentioned as the game continues, you're going to be able to do quick hacks, which are going to give you some extra actions and things that you're able to do. So really, this is just kind of like a expanding game. There's lots of ways that you can increase your skill and gain new actions, and really what you're trying to do is optimize your turn, do as much as you possibly can to help support your team before passing it over to the next person. And you are going to have a lot of different cards that you're going to be able to play out. And depending on your skill level, like I said, it's going to allow you to do more things or to do different things. I also mentioned that you can craft different item cards. These are going to be slotted right up into the board here, and they're also going to have a crafting cost, which you're going to have to essentially get rid of. So there's going to be cube trackers on this that you'll need to get rid of in order to fully use that item's ability. Then you're going to replenish your hand of cards, and then the next player clockwise is going to start their turn. This is meant to be really snappy and really fast because, once again, the real-time element. So if you're kind of playing out your cards or you're doing the stuff, as soon as you're done, you're refilling your hand, the next person's going to start right away. They're going to go. They're going to do the same thing. The next person's going to go. So that is kind of how quickly you gotta think quick, basically. And just make sure that the first player is done before the next player goes, because you can't start playing your turn until the player before you has completely finished. So you really do need to kind of pay attention to what your teammates are doing. It is helpful if, when you are the active player, as soon as you're done your turn, to say done, and then that way the next player is going to know to go. Just makes it a lot easier than somebody having to like stare at you and be like, are you done? Are you not done? So it's really helpful for everyone if you say when you're done. And then it's also good to know that the app will sometimes also announce how much time you have left, because there's going to be a lot going on. You're going to be doing stuff, doing combat, doing cards, doing all of this stuff, and other people are trying to pay attention to what's going on. So it's also, you have to pay attention to the time, obviously, because there's a countdown. If you're using the app will announce occasionally how much time you have left, so it's almost like a checkpoint for you. So in that first prologue mission, like I said, it's very basic. You're just kind of learning the base mechanics of the game, but as the game progresses, as the prologue progresses, you're going to learn how to do things like craft items, install quick hacks, you're going to encounter loot, you're going to be able to trade with your fellow players, and so much more. So the complexity level of the game is going to kind of increase as time goes on, which is exactly what you want, and actually is very thematic to how video games work. I actually think that's something that this game has captured really well, because, you know, oftentimes when we play board games, you learn all of the rules up front and you have to remember all of it and play. Whereas when you're playing a video game, it really does kind of take you through almost like a tutorial mode, and you learn things as you go, which is exactly how this game is teaching you how to play, essentially. After players are done the action phase, then they're going to go through steps of cooldown, and there's actually a help card that walks you through all of those cooldown steps. During this time, you're going to be discarding cards from your hands, checking loot, preparing for the next step, next action phase. And players can take as much time as they need during the cooldown phase. So you're really, like I said before, you're prepping for your next fight. So you want to make sure that you're as prepared as you can be. You want to gear up, you want to update the game state, and you want to discuss your further actions and strategies with your teammates. So this is the time to really do that. So in each mission, you are going to have certain objectives that you are trying to reach. And like I mentioned, those are going to be outlined on your mission cards. The objectives are all listed on the back, and these objectives can be done by different players. So as an example, in Prologue 1, one of the objectives is disarm guards, play a red card while on A, and it's corresponding to the map. So while on A, play a red card. That is done. A player who completes an objective will immediately collect the rewards for doing so. It'll list what the rewards are down the side here of what you get. This one says call the car, play a blue card while on B, so on and so forth. So you are trying to complete all of the objectives that it outlines, and then down at the bottom it's going to say what you do next. So once you do all of these, then you get to escape. After completing all the main objectives, advance on the starting tile. So everything you need to know is going to be on that mission card. It'll have some setup instructions, all that good stuff here. The goal of the game is for all players to win the game together, because it is a cooperative game, and you do that by successfully completing all of the main objectives of that mission, okay? Players are going to lose if they fail to complete any main objectives in time. Okay, so once again, there's that time element. You gotta be quick. That is the prologue. That is kind of what I have experienced so far. However, the full game of Cyberpunk 2077, the board game, will feature an immersive campaign. There's gonna be diverse missions. Like I said before, a living night city filled with challenging enemies and more tools to deal with them, and just a bunch of stuff. Considering the diversity that is in the demo copy, I feel like pretty confident in saying that the full game is going to have just so much for you to explore. Even the Night City map book here, like you'll see at the end, I'm missing pages and I'm very curious about what's going on in there. This is what the first page of the map book looks like, in case anybody is so curious how this works and you're exploring. So this is O1 empathy bar, okay, as you're exploring, and then is going to have a corresponding kind of like mini mission thing or side story, I guess I should say, with some like quotes and dialogue and stuff like that. And then there's also the city map. There's just so much to explore in this, and it's really hard. I don't want to, obviously I'm not going to spoil much because this is a demo copy which is meant to be shown, but I do know specifically because I'm married to somebody who loves video games and doesn't like to be spoiled on what comes. with them, that is kind of what I wanted to show you. So the real question is, who is this game for? This game is obviously for fans of Cyberpunk 2077. This game really kind of sets the mood of the video game, or at least that's what Jeff has told me as somebody who has played the video game, both with the components and the gameplay. It is the only game kind of set in this world that players can impersonate V, Jackie, Judy, and Panam, and it tells a whole brand new story within the world. So if you've already explored everything that Cyberpunk 2077 has to offer, then this is something new for you to discover. It's kind of a new story. If you enjoy mission-based campaign games, this could be a really great game for you. If you enjoy working towards goals together with your teammates, so this is a fully cooperative experience. You need to work together really well because of the real-time aspect of this game. And I also just want to be very clear that if you're somebody who's like, oh, I don't know about real time, I wouldn't let that deter you from this, because it really is more about that kind of group experience. But there is the real-time aspect, but just know that it's more about the group experience and kind of doing all the stuff together. And because you can strategize in advance, it definitely helps with that aspect for sure. Obviously, if you like fighting, like I mentioned, the main action phase in this, you're fighting and then you're cooling down so that you can build up to do your next fight. But the benefit here is that you're not fighting against your friends and other people. You're fighting against the game and you are trying to complete those objectives. That is a little bit more about Cyberpunk 2077, the board game. I would be really curious to know down in the description if you played the video game, if this is a game that you are interested in trying out, what you think of the world. I would love to know. Now, if you're interested in Cyberpunk 2077, the board game, I'm going to have all the links and everything that you need in the description below. As per usual, make sure that you watch lots of videos, read reviews, watch reviews, if you could watch a gameplay, all of those different things. I think that will be really helpful for making your decision. But that is everything that I have for you today. Now, if you're interested in buying board games, remember this one we're going to Gamefound, but other board games you can find at your friendly local gaming store. And for us, that's the Boardroom Game Cafe. Ah! I'm wearing the shirt. Love when that happens. If you like what you see, please subscribe. I hope to see you again soon. And now I'll say goodbye. Goodbye. Some board gamey things. Whoa, my voice cracked big time. Now today's preview video is going, whoops. Were you gonna go back here? You could go back here. Only if you promise not to fall down. Good God, he's just stomping around up there. We'll kind of right up top into your board here. Oopsies, you fell.